Greetings, welcome to TFI. Look, I'm going to just draw a line under this QNAP thing, sort of wrap it up. It's a couple of weeks old now, the story. The events happened a few weeks ago. It's all over the internet now. At the time, it wasn't. It was sort of new. When I made my 2 videos, which went viral by my channel standards, like, you know, I'm in a niche within a niche. But the 2 videos that I made on the QNAP thing, because I was attacked myself, I lost data. They kind of exploded. I got tons of feedback. I got tons of comments. I got tons of emails as well. And I just want to kind of draw a line under it and move on, because I'm not necessarily done with it. I'm equally as raging now with QNAP as I was back then. But I've actually got my data back. Like, all of the data that was encrypted and that I lost, I've actually got it back. So I'm kind of good. But the reason I'm doing this is I'm still getting people emailing me. So they're watching my videos from 3 weeks ago and they're going, "Oh, this guy looks like he's in a bit of a pickle. He looks like he's in a bit of a crisis. He needs my guidance. He needs some assistance. I best email him, tell him I can help him." Like, mate, you're watching a 3-week-old video. You know, if I don't do something, if I don't do this, like, I guarantee in 2 years' time, someone will be doing that. You should try this. I don't even have the QNAP box anymore. You know what I mean? QNAP have gone bust. You know what I mean? 2 years' time. The story, I'll just briefly recap. So 3 weeks ago, there was a global attack on QNAP customers. QNAP being a manufacturer, builder of NAS boxes, network attached storage. I bought one a couple of years ago to consolidate all my data onto this one single box. And you map a drive to it, and that's your sort of centralized storage box. There was a global ransomware attack went down, and it eviscerated the data of tens of thousands of QNAP customers globally. It went in through a vulnerability in QNAP's bloatware, and people just turned up for work, turned the computer on, and all of a sudden their data, with all their photos, all their memories, their holiday photos, kids' photos, weddings photos, just zipped up, password protected, with a ransom note saying, "Gives us some Bitcoin, please." Okay, right. How did that happen? So in my first video, I've got a CCTV footage of me actually witnessing it happen in front of my eyes. I was just sat here working and darting over to the cupboard and unplugging my NAS box. And contrary to the moronically incompetent advice that QNAP were giving, first thing I did was unplugged my NAS box, because you do that. That's what you do. When you see a ransomware attack, you unplug it. It does not matter that this ransomware attack can benefit from letting it go. You do not issue advice under any circumstances telling people to allow a ransomware attack to unfold and continue. It is irresponsible to the extreme. But that was the advice. If you go to QNAP's website, that was what they were saying to people should do. And many instances of people contacting QNAP's technical support saying, "Oh, just let the ransomware attack continue and give us a call, email us, we'll help you because we're great, we're really competent." Okay, no, I don't think so. And what I'm basing that on, if you're thinking, well, what do you know? What do you know? Right, stuff on the internet sticks, mate. It sticks. So when you publish an article saying, if you see this ransomware attack happening, let it go, don't touch the NAS box. If somebody reads that, this is not pie in the sky. This is very, very likely to happen. If somebody reads that article who's not technically literate, they're not all that experienced and skilled with computers, and they can't differentiate one event from another, they're going to read that and think, okay, if a ransomware attack happens, don't unplug it. Ask for help. So what if they read that article, because things stick, they read that article in 6 months' time, and then 3 weeks later, a ransomware attack happens at their company, and they think, "I read that article. I know what to do here. I read that article. It said don't touch it." So all their Windows sheds, all their map drives on their servers, they're all getting encrypted, all getting wrapped up. Boom, boom, boom. Servers toppling like dominoes. No, guys, I've got it. I've got it under control. QNAP said, leave it alone. Do you see my point? What if it's not the same ransomware attack? That person is possibly not able to differentiate one attack from the other. What if it is on another NAS box? What if it is another attack on the same NAS box? It's just a different designed attack. And this time it doesn't stay localized to the NAS box, and it jumps. It jumps from the NAS box to their Windows devices. And then it gets onto a PC that's connected to their work VPN or their work laptop, and then it sits there sleeping. And then, I don't know, you don't know how every ransomware attack's designed. What if it does jump and goes onto other devices and spreads across their company corporate network? It can happen, because not every ransomware attack's the same. Pretty evident, that's fact. So it was ridiculous advice, absolutely irresponsible, stupid advice to say to people, leave the box on, don't unplug it. So I didn't do that. It was the best thing I ever did. So yeah, what I did, I darted over to the cupboard and plugged the NAS box. And fortunately, because I was in the room here whilst the attack actually started to happen, I could hear my drives like clattering and beginning to encrypt. And at the time, I didn't know what it was. I just thought, what the hell's going on? Is it backing itself up or something? So that was when I fired up my map drive, saw it starting to encrypt, and I pulled the plug before it got too far through. It encrypted tens of thousands of files, but yeah, I didn't lose everything. So I'll start with, I'm sure to do this in, but I'll start with where I'm at now. Right, I got my data back. Ultimately, I got it all back, and that was generally thanks to my quick acting in pulling the plug. Because I pulled the plug quite quickly and only a small amount of my data was encrypted, I lost 5 or 6 days of my life in the aftermath of that, trying to salvage the data off the platters and using the photo rec thing. And I bought software called Reclaim Me. Had them dial in, looking at the disks, seeing what they could salvage. 5 or 6 days of my life lost, which I absolutely want compensated for in some way from QNAP. It's a drop in the ocean to what other people have lost, 200 quid in 6 days of my life, but I want something back for that from QNAP. I didn't ask for this. There was nothing I could do about it. But ultimately, a lot of the data that was encrypted was just completely gone, right? There was nothing I could do about it. Sure, the photo rec solution that I came up with, I could have got it back from that. That was my last ditch effort. Fortunately though, at the end of the week, I remembered in my loft, because I'm a hoarder and I hate e-waste, I've still got the old mechanical drives that the data was on before I moved on to the NAS box. It was deleted off the drives because I formatted them. But using the software, the Reclaim Me software, I managed to get onto the platters and do the undelete thing and restore the data. So I lost a few files which were new that weren't on those disks because it's been a couple of years since I moved the data off those drives. That's why I forgot they were there. But I got everything back. All my data is restored, and I'm still friggin' livid with QNAP. Friggin' livid. Because it wasn't really about the data. I mean, it was, but it was more about how this happened and the fact that we were completely helpless and their poor communications, their inability to take ownership of this. And so, yeah, I got all my data back, which was good for me. Unfortunately, obviously, that's not something that's going to be available to everyone. The other methods that we've come up with is what other people are going to have to go through. So I just want to talk about some of the feedback that came through from my other videos. The first is the emails that I'm getting from people who are talking about, like, people are saying, did you know, like, you've come up with that video about photo rec where you can download the data off the disks without file names, but Neil, you don't have to do that. You can actually get the password for the zip files that have been encrypted. You can get the password. Check out these videos. And I'm like, I know it's coming from a good place, but you didn't listen to what I was saying in my video. Like, I tried to be quick and prompt with it, but basically with this ransomware attack, you can find yourself in two positions, right? The attack's either happening or it's finished. And what I said at the start of my tutorial is, if the attack's still happening, you need to go somewhere else, right? You need to go somewhere else and find another tutorial because there's a better option than what I'm going to go through. And I didn't talk about that more because the people who needed my help were desperate, right? They're facing the loss of their data, their personal data, all their photos, right? They're desperate. They don't want to hear me waffle on about an option that isn't available to them. So I just said, look, if the attack's still happening, go somewhere else, quick. If it's stopped, right? If it's done, all your data is encrypted and the attack's over, maybe you've power cycled your device, then follow this guide. So yeah, that's kind of where I was at. And I couldn't even demonstrate both options because I'd already power cycled my NAS box and I'd done the right thing. I couldn't even demonstrate the other one. So yeah, that's why it was what it was. I also got a few emails from people who were trying to get me to promote or push their apps that they've made for this. I don't want to crap on anyone who had the best intentions, but there's been a lot of scammers operating in this sphere since this all went down. The Bleeping Computer forum that a lot of the activity had been kind of coming out of, there were scammers operating in that. There were scammers operating in my YouTube comments, saying, oh, so-and-so on Instagram was helping you encrypt my files. It's all a big scam. Trying to get people remotely connected to your computer so they can scam you. And I had people emailing me saying, hey, I've got an app. I've wrote an app. You can have the source code, which I can't read, right? I'm not a programmer. That could be a good gesture. It might be an empty gesture. It might be punt, hoping that the person that they're approaching can't read the source code. I don't know. Either way, I can't risk it. But they're approaching me saying, hey, look, I've got an app. It'll fix the file names once you've downloaded it from the NAS box. And I'm like, okay, but why are you coming to me? Right? Why me? Why don't you take this to QNAP? Do you know what I mean? Why don't you offer your services to QNAP or Bitdefender or Kaspersky? Because what you're essentially offering is the final piece of the puzzle in sort of decrypting the files, aren't you? That's really what you're doing. If someone could combine that with the photo rec tool to then have a single executable, which then downloads the data and then renames it. So why don't you sell your services to a security company and make some money off it? Don't come to me. I can't do anything, and I can't risk it. I'm not, because if it is a scam, if it is someone with malicious intent, I can't live with myself if I push that person onto people who are already in pretty dire straits. So no, I just ignored them. So if that was you, if you'd come to me with that, it's not personal. I just couldn't risk it. So that was that. I want to talk about backups as well. By far, the most frequent comment that I got in those two videos was people saying backups, right? You should have backed your data up. Like, if you had have backed data up, it wouldn't have been a problem. You should have everyone should have backed their data up and it wouldn't have been. I back my data up. You should know I back my data up. I'm fine. Look, it's not about backing your data up. As I said before, if my data was backed up, if I had it backed up 10 times over, I could have had it stored in a bunker underground. I could have had it, cached in a bunker down the road. It could be on the moon, right? I don't care. It made no difference. I'd have been equally as mad with QNAP as I was on day one. Makes no difference to me. Sure, it would have lessened the blow if I had it backed up. I would have been, I still would have lost some time and it would have lessened the hurt. But this wasn't about backups for me. This was about QNAPs, negligence and incompetence. And let's just talk about this though. It's not something I can just kind of summarize in a minute. But backing up, these devices, right, these QNAP devices, they're marketed at home users. They're marketed at consumers, not sysadmins and IT professionals and corporations. Sure, they can buy them, but you look at the marketing pages, they're for small home offices and consumers. The local wedding photographer, right, who's got a stash of wedding photos to keep a copy of. He buys a QNAP NAS box. He has absolutely no reason, right, entitlement, or requirement to become an IT professional to learn how to run, manage, maintain, and support his QNAP NAS box. He buys his NAS box. His mate probably sets it up for him, sticks it in the corner of his office and says, there you go, I've mapped a drive on your laptop. Whenever you want to copy some photos, just double click that and copy them into there. There you go. Robert's your father's brother. You're sorted, mate. And that's it. Same with the market towards your dad, your next door neighbour, your granddad, right? You buy a storage box, they just put it in the corner. They expect it to be fit for purpose. That's who these boxes are marketed for. So all this talk of, and it's coming out of QNAP. I've just read articles from QNAP. Our customers should be deploying the 3-2-1 backup solution. Now, fuck off. 3-2-1 backup solution. Bore off. Who do you think we are? We're home users. Like my data, right? I've got 8 terabytes of data. I said in my first video, right, like some of that data is business data. But let me be clear, my business is coppers, right? It's absolute coppers. I make a couple of £100 a month doing YouTube videos. This video you're watching right now, at best, is going to make me £2.50, probably $3, something like that. I am not spending upwards of 3 figures a month on a recurring subscription to back up my Premiere Pro projects and my B-roll in the event that QNAP open their, just drop their knickers, spread their legs, and let another attacker into my data. It's not happening. So my data, it's really, really vital to me. It's very, very, very important to me. It's nostalgic, it's personal. It's something that I've accumulated over the years. It's financially and monetarily worth nothing. So I can't justify paying that much. Look at how much it costs to send 8 terabytes off site. It's ludicrously expensive. Can't justify that. Sure, you can put a few photos into Amazon Photos or Google Drive or whatever, Google Photos and Dropbox, but that'll only take up so much. The rest, I mean, I've got service packs, I've got Autodesk installation media, I've got SQL service packs, just things that I use, just things that I've accumulated over the years, like Windows ISOs that I use for VMs and stuff like that. Things that I'd struggle to get another copy of. Financially, they're worth all. So I can't justify paying for them to be backed up off site. But I will not have anybody tell me that it's my fault that they're lost because QNAP screwed me over. I will not have anybody tell me that it's my fault and that I should have had them backed up off site because QNAP screwed up. Because that data, right, I've been personally responsible for all my data for about 25 years, mate. 25 years I've had my data in my premises, right, in my dwelling on various different devices. I've done a pretty good job of keeping it safe. And it's been fine. I've done a pretty good job of that. And the way I look at it is if my house was to burn down, if someone was to come in and vandalize my property and just destroy it all, that's something that I can control, right? I can minimize that. I can mitigate that. There's steps that I can do to mitigate that. If it still happens, all of the variables there are within my control. All of them, every single one of them, from the advertisement of the fact that my house is here, to the entry points, to the data being visible, to the devices being accessible. It's all within my responsibility. So if it still happens, I will take responsibility for that. I will learn from it and I will move on. I'll probably do nothing different though. I'll do nothing different because sometimes shit just happens to you. This though is not shit just happening to you. This is corporate negligence. This is corporate negligence and incompetence that cost thousands of customers to lose their data and cost them financially because some of them pay in. We'll talk about that in a second. But yeah, and let's be honest, if make no two bones about this, the people who are saying in the comments, like with the best of intentions, don't get me wrong, some of them are with the best of intentions, some of them are just being absolute bastards, but the people who are saying you should back your data up to multiple USB drives or whatever else would be the same people who would tell you that a USB drive isn't a good enough backup in the event that your house burned down. They'd say you should have backed your data up off-site. To which you'd then have to say, well, where do you stop with that? And how far do you go? Because frankly, and I'll argue this until I fall over with exhaustion, I am not going to back up 8 terabytes of data like my Plex libraries and my Premiere, 8 years of Premiere Pro assets and whatever in projects, and then walk down to my parents' house and say, can you keep a copy of my backup? It's not going to happen. And if my house burns down and I lose it, quite frankly, my house has just burned down. I've got bigger problems to worry about. But a ransomware attack, someone destroy my data through a ransomware attack, that's a threshold being crossed. It's not black and white. That's a threshold being crossed. That's not acceptable. So sure, I agree. Having a backup is always a good idea. It always helps. But all of the chatter, all of the noise, all of the talk, and the victim blaming about backups, you should have had a backup, you'd have been fine if you had a backup, is just diverting the discussion away from where the root cause of this problem is, and that's QNAP's negligence, which we'll talk about as well. Still got that to talk about. So yeah, I consciously chose to not back it up. Like I said, I've got 8 terabytes. What do I do with that? I mean, I've got several Western Digital passports here, terabyte a pop. Do I span it out over multiple drives? Really feasible to do that. Even if I did that and my house burned down, like I said, the same people would say, well, that wasn't really a good enough backup. That's not 3, 2, 1. Right, you're gone. That's not good enough. It's just not feasible. What do? Do I buy an 8 terabyte Western Digital book that needs its own power supply? It's so big. It costs 800 quid because it's that big and bulky. Why should I spend upwards of 800 quid. I don't know what they probably made that one, 500 quid or whatever it is for an 8 terabyte USB chunk, right? Why would you spend that much to back up a NAS box to have a clone of it? You just wouldn't. Not a home user anyway. You know what I mean? Home users don't do that. Granted, most home users don't have 8 terabytes worth of data, but I do. It's still not financially worth anything. That does not give anyone the right to tell me, well, then it's your fault that it's gone and you should be happy to lose it. It's just doesn't work like that. You know, I'd be okay losing it if my house burned down or if someone broke in, not a QNAP ransomware attack through a bloatware backdoor through hard-coded credentials. Which, in fact, let's talk about that now. I'll keep referencing. Let's talk about that. So, how did this happen? So, the waters are a bit muddied on how it happened. There was talk of a group who'd notified QNAP 6 months ago of an SQL injection vulnerability through Multimedia Studio or Multimedia Station or one of their bloatware apps. And they gave them 6 months notice to get this fixed. QNAP did nothing. And then they published their blog, the vulnerability, in March 31st, 2021. It appeared the person who was responsible for this ransomware attack found that vulnerability and then exploited it after seeing this blog. But then all of the chatter about this attack seems to be focused around the hybrid backup solution or station, or the HBS program. Apparently, QNAP had, and this is where it just gets worse, they had hard-coded admin credentials in their app on the NAS box. So somebody was able to get into the NAS boxes. I don't know how. Maybe it was the SQL injection. I don't know. I don't know enough about this stuff. I'm kind of ignorant on that. But someone was able to get in to the NAS boxes, utilize hard-coded credentials in bloatware that you can't disable. I'd never used HBS, this hybrid backup thing. Never used it. So whatever it was on my NAS box, it was factory stock. And then they just blitzed the NAS boxes through that. QNAP deployed a patch for this HBS vulnerability on April the 16th, I believe it was. April the 16th. This attack began rolling out around April the 22nd. It doesn't give you much time, does it? It doesn't give you much time. Apparently, QNAP were notified by a company called Zuso Art back in the middle of March that this vulnerability existed. I don't know. It's all a bit smoke and mirrors, a bit cloak and daggers. I don't know the details. I don't know how that attack got in, and I don't know what the entry point was. I don't know what the entry point was. I don't know what was used, but it was a 7-zip process that ultimately went through and blitzed all the files. But I don't know how it got through. All I do know is that QNAP's customers did not have a chance. They did not stand a chance. They didn't have time to update their apps. And let's be clear, that wedding photographer, your granddad, my next door neighbor, me, I do not log onto my NAS box every other day to update my apps. When I bought a NAS box, I bought it for one job and one job only. A storage box. Right? I didn't buy it thinking, do you know what I really want? There's another thing I need to micromanage. Oh, I'd love that. Another app store that I've got to keep checking and updating apps on. No. Do you know what I mean? No. And I took a bit of criticism in my first video from people who were saying, mate, you've been unreasonable saying that QNAP should have automatically deployed the updates. I said that from a point of view of QNAP knew the attack was underway. They have a patch for it, and they know the attack is underway. Right now, they know their customers are being hit. Their NAS boxes are toppling like dominoes. They have the patch for it. Just deploy the fucking patch. Deploy the patch. Make an exception for this one patch. It's going out there and it's nailing their customers. I'm not saying make a habit of it. I'm not saying in future, we think this one is quite important because of X, Y, Z. Someone could do something. I'm not saying that. I'm saying there's an actual attack underway and you've got the solution for it. Deploy the fucking patch. That's kind of where I was coming from with that. But they didn't. They didn't even notify anyone. They put a piddly little article on their website, because who visits the QNAP website? Who even knows that their NAS box was branded QNAP? Let's be honest, because most people who buy a NAS box, they don't care. Sorry, QNAP, but you're not all that. right? Nobody cares. It's a couple of hard drives, a box. That's what you are. You've got one job and one job only to be a storage box. Don't get ahead of yourselves. Incompetence is off the chart, hard-coded credentials in the hybrid backup station. Who did that? Where's the apology as well? Because I've been hunting through the website and I've seen the article, QNAP's response to the ransomware attack, saying, thank you so much to Zuso Art for letting us know. We acted really quick. You did nothing quickly. You did nothing quickly. You waited far too long to create the patch. You waited far too long to make the patch available, and you waited even longer before actually telling people about it. Do you know how I know that? Because all your NAS boxes are toppling over like dominoes and people are losing their data. It's not up for debate. There's no ambiguity here, mate. It's actually happening. It's unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. No apology, no accountability. They pat themselves on the back that they've actually made the patch for it, and then it's just a case of gaslighting all the customers. Well, you need to go out and update your apps. If you want to be safe from this, you need to go out and update your apps. Sure, yeah, updating the app will actually fix this, but how about you just apologize? How about you just address the root of this problem? Tackle that head on. Right? I know it's probably not good for your PR. It actually probably will be. It will be good for your PR. It couldn't get any worse. Hard-coded credentials. But yeah, this SQL injection vulnerability still gets mentioned in the discussion, and that was something that was brought to QNAP's attention back in October 2020, and they did nothing about that until the middle of April and gave people barely any notice, like literally 2 days of notice that patch was available before the attack began unfolding. So yeah, that was that. But who stood a chance? I mean, really, who stood a chance? The patch was available on April the 16th. The attacks began happening on April the 22nd. Think of the typical residential consumer QNAP owner. They go months, possibly years without ever logging into the QNAP box, the actual operating system. They never stood a chance. They never stood a chance with this. It's entirely on you, QNAP. You had those credentials hard-coded into that app. You had that vulnerability. You should have done more to notify your customers. This is class action levels of incompetence, and you bloody well know it. So as it turns out, the attackers behind this, and this was on April the 24th, right? This was a few days after, 26th, something like that. It was a few days after the attack began. The attackers had made $250,000 in ransomware payments. Can you imagine that? $250,000. That was a few days afterwards. We're now 3 weeks afterwards. I wouldn't be surprised if that's now closer to $500,000 or more, because apparently they've raised the price as well. They've went up to 0.01 Bitcoin, or 0.2 Bitcoin. But as much as I think these guys are scumbags that did the ransomware attack, I'm not going to praise them. I'm not going to give them any credit whatsoever. They're a pack of absolute cretins. But they played QNAP like a fiddle, right? They spotted an opportunity here and they took well advantage of it, right? They spotted an opportunity and they've clinical is the word to use for this. They found the vulnerability, created the attack, deployed it absolute like military precision, and they even designed the ransom absolutely perfectly. Know your audience, knowing that QNAP's typical end user is just a residential user, right? They're not asking for $200,000. They're not asking for $10,000. They're asking for $500 through Bitcoin. Most QNAP end users can just about stretch to that if it means getting all their family photos back and all of their data back. It was, I don't want to use the word genius, but you've got to kind of, you can see how well designed this was. In QNAP, you just got absolute played. And your customers suffered as a result of it. And unfortunately, the people who paid, like, I don't want to victim blame because I know how desperate I was a victim. And I know how desperate every single victim felt. You can see it on me when I ran towards that cupboard when I was attacked. So I don't want to victim blame, but all I'll say is this. If nobody had previously paid a ransomware attacker, this attack would have never happened. You would have never been hit. And the fact that you've now paid this ransomware attacker and you've created this buzz, you've made this jackpot total of $250,000 or more, you've now inspired a new generation of ransomware attackers, which probably in all fairness, in all likelihood, are going to hit you again through another channel. It might be your NAS box, it might be, I don't know, it might be your laptop, it might be your phone, who knows what it might be next. But there's someone somewhere, possibly an army of people somewhere who are looking at this and going, I want me a slice of that pie. You know, $250,000. I've got nothing going for me. I'm in an absolute slum of a neighborhood. I've got no prospects. There's a lot of poverty out there. I feel awful for the people who are in the positions that they're in, but they're looking at this probably and going, what have I got to do to get in on this? What have I got to do to get in on that and get a slice of that pie? Because this is inspirational levels of money. Like it is $250,000 for what, by all accounts, from what I've read, was a amateurish bug in QNAP software. So yeah, that's happened. So yeah, that's pretty much where we're at with it. Got my data back in the end. Doesn't make any difference to me. I'm still absolutely livid with QNAP, who haven't apologized. They haven't taken accountability for it. They haven't held themselves accountable, taken any responsibility for it. And I don't think they will. But all I'll hope for is that this is irreparable damage to their brand and their reputation. And it absolutely has to be. I'm done with QNAP. Unfortunately, because I did, it's sort of a double-edged sword here, because I did retrieve all my data, I've had to put it back onto that NAS box, but I've severed it from the internet. But you can't expect everyone to do that. You can't expect, the wedding photographer, how's he going to sever his NAS box from the internet? How's he going to do that? Have you seen the settings in a QNAP NAS box? Like every single prompt is like a Harry Potter novel sized warning notice. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ludicrous. It's just, so anyway, yeah, I had to put my data somewhere, so I put it back on there, and it's just temporary before I find something else. I've been in touch with, or these guys got in touch with me, to be fair. This is Latticework Amber. They, I believe, are a startup, judging by sort of like there's not much noise on them. There's not much online presence. But they got in touch with me after seeing the video that I released, the first couple of videos, and they were like, hey, look, our product is the polar opposite of what you've went through. We kind of actively design a product that prevents all of that, right? That's not cool. You need one of these. So yeah, I've installed this and I'm checking it out. I can't do a review of it though, because I'm not a NAS expert. I'm not, the way I operate my channel, from day one, I will not do a video on something unless I can hold an argument with somebody over the source material, what I'm talking about, and feel like I can win an argument. And I can't do that with NAS boxes because I'm not a NAS expert. So I'll just check it out and see what it's like. One thing's for sure is that it's not got enough storage in it, right? I mean, this is 2 by 2 terabytes and they're only 2.5 inch drive bays. My NAS box, my QNAP NAS box is 2 by 8 terabytes, 3.5 inch drive bays. So I can't even put the discs in this. But from what I've seen so far, the limited reviews from other tech tubers and journalists on this, very, very positive, which is good. And it seems to be a router before it's a NAS box. It's sort of a multi-use device, AI-powered smart storage. It's got dual-band Wi-Fi router, so it's got 5G and 2G. I don't know if it's Wi-Fi 6. I haven't got that far in yet. It doesn't say Wi-Fi 6 on it, so I'm not sure. It's Intel CPU inside. It's hybrid, personal hybrid cloud, multi-user support, dual HDD. Yeah, so like it's, when I set it up, all the menus and all this, you know, the settings and that, and the guides seem to be more heavily focused towards the router functionality than the storage. But we'll see. I'll check it out. I'll do a follow-up video, just like more of an awareness thing, possibly not a review. I'm not competent enough on these to do a review. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. But maybe I'll put the most sensitive, like smaller files on this, and then just leave maybe my Plex library on the QNAP box. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But that'll do. All right, that's it. That's the end of the QNAP saga. Fortunately, I did get my data back. Not everyone can do that, unfortunately. It's just an absolute shit show. Whether there's class actions spin up as a result of this, you fill your boots with it, man. I mean, hard-coded credentials and delays informing customers. My email addresses in my QNAP profile are still to this date haven't been notified by QNAP that there's a problem. What are they doing? Just waiting for me to visit their website to find out that I've got to update my apps? You could just go in front of a judge and saying to the judge, we expect all of our customers to regularly log into their NAS boxes and update their apps. What? What? So would you do that on your TV as well, and your car dashboard, and your phone, and your iPad, and your other TV, and your fridge has got an app store as well? You've got one of those TV fridges. That really goes. You can do it on your fridge as well. You must do that daily. You spend nothing in your life except going around all your devices, checking bloody app stores. But Jesus Christ. But anyway, I mean, sure, updating the app would have solved it if you'd done it within that couple of day window, which nobody would have done. But yeah, it just wasn't. Come on, be real, be realistic. You know, most people who've got NAS boxes were never going to check their apps in that time window. So that'll do. Thanks very much for watching. I'll draw a line under it there, and hopefully the videos that I've made helped people out. If they did, good. And I'll see you all in the next one. Doodles.